Well, here we are again. It's been quite a long time since we've done another one of these classical Japanese analysis videos, specifically with Okami, so we're picking right back up where we left off, and I want to get just into it. In case you didn't know, what I'm doing here is I'm taking video games and finding instances of classical Japanese, which is very, very, very old Japanese, finding instances in games, and I'm basically using this as a way for you intrepid learners who want to understand classical Japanese, or at the very least just want to understand what is being said when you come across these things, and I can point out, like, see this instance right here? This is why this part, and the way he says that, the way this character says this or that is really cool. So basically, if you're into that, this is for you. And without any further ado, I am just going to jump right into it, because if you've been here before, you probably have been here before. You already know what I'm going to do. And if you're new here, you'll probably pick it up as you go, and you'll see and whatnot. So, and also, I would like to make these videos a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller, and then that way it'll be not only a little bit easier for you guys to watch them, but it will also mean that I have to do significantly less editing. Anyway, let's get into it. So, this is Celestial Brushstroke Technique number... I don't even remember. You guys will remember. I'll put it in the title or wherever I put it. Anyway, let's just get into it. This is Moegami, right? And of course, we have to watch the little opening scene. Moegami is a bird. I'm assuming he's supposed to be kind of like a Suzaku, which is like the Japanese-Chinese version of a phoenix, which technically wasn't really associated with fire, but in this case, it is, because it's cool. Okay, so the first thing that we got to point out here, and I do have my fan because it's been so hot these past few days in Japan. Holy cow. Anyways, Moegami, okay? Moe comes from the root verb moyu in classical Japanese, modern Japanese moeru, which means to burn. However, we have it in the moe, the soft connective form, which basically means that you can take two words and basically smash them together to make one word. So moe means to burn. Gami comes from kami, which means God. So Moegami literally means like the god of burning god, burn god, okay? And then going right into it. O warera ga jibo Amaterasu o mikami, okay? Ware means I. Warera means we. Warera ga means our. Jibo is a Chinese loanword that means, has the two characters for compassionate and mother. So our compassionate mother. Amaterasu o mikami. Amaterasu comes from the combination of the two words ame, which means heaven. Terasu, which means to shine or to brighten up. And then, so literally Amaterasu means heaven shining. That is the name of Amaterasu, the protagonist in this game. O Mikami. O, this character right here, O just means great, big, awesome, huge, great in this instance. And then Kami, again, means God. However, we have this honorific Mi, which means like celestial, spiritual power, grandiose, like great. So, O warera ga jibo Amaterasu o Mikami, our great goddess, heaven shining, our compassionate mother, heaven shining great goddess, Amaterasu. Okay, moving on. Okay, now again, if you want to know more, I do go into further detail in some of these things in previous videos, so please check those out. If there's some other instances, some questions that you have, I do go into more detail again there, and they might answer your questions. I am going to try to make this quick though. Okay, so moving on. Okay, maga maga shiki hokora nite. Okay, so maga maga shiki is the first word here, and it is an adjective, okay? Now, the regular form of magamagashi is magamagashi, okay? And magamagashi is actually, you can even reduce it even further down to magamaga, which you can even reduce it down to maga, which means, like, calamitous, or, like, sinister, or evil, okay? So we have maga, like you've probably seen in some games and some anime and stuff, you'll find guys that are called the Magatsu Kami, okay? And please, I apologize if the sound of the Shinkansen passing by my apartment is coming through. But anyways, maga means, again, like sinister, evil, catastrophic, those kinds of things. So Magatsu Kami means a god of destruction, god of wickedness, god of evil, I guess you could say. However, we have maga maga because, you know, repeating it like that makes it a little bit more like emphatic, I guess you could say. And then we put the shi on the end of it, which turns it into an adjective. However, maga maga shi is the ending form. It would be what you would put at the end of a sentence. However, this is not in the ending form. This is in the attributive form, okay? Sorry, I'm speaking really quickly. The attributive form is the form that you use with both adjectives and verbs when you want to use that adjective or verb to describe an immediately following noun, okay? So the immediately following noun of magamagashiki, okay? Magamagashi goes to magamagashiki, that is the attributive form, is the hokora, okay? Hokora just means a shrine, like a Shinto shrine. It's a little bit different from jinja, but hokora just means a shrine. So magamagashiki hokora is a evil, calamitous, sinister shrine to some god, okay? And then we have two particles here, ni and te, okay? Ni is the prepositional particle. It just means the best way you can translate it into English is at, in, on, by, to, okay? I think those are the best ways to translate it. And then we have this te, which is a hard connective thing, okay? So te, and you can stick it on the end of other particles, or you can actually stick it on the end of verbs. Actually, you can attach it to practically any word now that I think about it. But when you have it with the ni particle, ni means, again, on, at, to, in, by. When you stick it with the ni, it kind of functions as this very similar, it's like you combine two particles together to get a very specific singular purpose here. So at and is kind of way, or in and, by and is what you can think of with this te. Te kind of means and. But it's also like a hard separation, okay? Whereas with Moegami, with his name Moegami, where that is a connective form, where you go from mo-you to mo-e, that is a soft connective form that allows you to like blend words together so they become one word, right? Whereas with the te, when you separate things and you connect things by the te is a little bit more of a hard connection, and it focuses on like, it keeps the two things disparate, keeps the two things separate, okay? But now, going back to nite, okay? Nite, when you have it this, ni again means at, in, on, by, whatever, and then when you put the te on it, it means by means of. It means by, but not by as in like next to a thing. It means by like by means of, using, this kind of a thing. So, magamagashi hokora nite. So, by means of this sinister shrine, mononoke ni, okay? Mononoke comes from the root word, the noun mono, which means just a thing. A thing. But a physical thing, not like an idea, not like a word, not like a thought, but like a physical thing like water or wind, or I'm actually thinking of something that can be kind of like a thing, like a physical thing, but not actually a physical thing. Again, wind is a really good example. Like you can't really, well, I guess you can touch wind, but like air or even an empty space would probably be a mono. An empty space would be a mono, but the idea of an empty space would be a koto. The mono is a physical thing as opposed to a koto, which is a not physical thing, like an idea. So, but mono means thing, and then no means of, okay? And then ke here, this is a really interesting word here, because the kanji that they use here is ayashi, okay, or ayakashi, okay, which means curious or surprising, or ayashi means suspicious. I think that's a good word. Ayashi, suspicious, something not understood, something strange, something otherworldly, okay? However, another way that you see this written, the word mononoke, because mononoke, if you guys, Princess Mononoke, it is the same mononoke. But another way that you can write ke is with the kanji ke, or ki is another way that you can pronounce it. Ki, which means like spirit or air or again, spirit is kind of the best way, but it's not like a spirit as in you're a defined person spirit. It's not like the spirit that dwells in me. It's more like a mood, an attitude, an air. This is the kanji that they use, the ke, can be used in things like kuki, which means air, right? Kuki means like space air or sky spirit, okay? The spirit of the sky, the thing, the intangible thing, that thing that moves, right? The breath, I guess you could think of it, right? So mononoke can be written in two ways. Mononoke, as written here, the thing of, by the way, no means of in this instance, no of, so the suspicious of thing, the suspicious thing, or the mononoke, or the like spirit thing, or the floating thing kind of is what you can think of. Sorry, I'm kind of giving just general ideas and hoping that something sticks and maybe it clicks some things on in your brain and you go, oh, that makes sense. If not, I apologize. I'm moving on anyway. Mononoke ni. Okay, so mononoke just basically means like an apparition, a ghost, a fiend of something. They're usually not nice, okay, is the thing. They're usually bad news bears. But, and some of them might actually be bear spirits, bad news bears. Anyway, mononoke just means, ghost, apparition. And then we have this ni, which again, technically it's the same ni as in before. However, this also means by, and it kind of means the same by, actually, now that I think about it. By. And the reason why we're having ni here, okay, is because it is connecting, it's connecting to the verb, I guess but it's not a kakari joshi. Maybe it is a kakari joshi, I don't know. But it's technically acting in accordance with the verb conjugation that comes later that we will get to, okay? So put a pin in this ni, we'll get back to it. Okay, so mononoke ni, so by the ghost, by spirits, by evil spirits. Chikara o, okay? Chikara is just a noun, it means power, okay? Now we have o, which is the object particle, which means it is the part of the sentence, denoting the part of the sentence that is receiving the action, okay? Although this ni kind of is doing that too. Interesting. Maybe it'll make sense, okay? And then we finally get to the verb, which is always the most important part of a Japanese sentence, okay? Except, not really, because fuze rare shi yori, okay? This is multiple things. We'll break it down. This fu here, food, is a Chinese loanword, okay? This means to, like, close or to seal off, to seal away, to seal off, okay? However, when it's used in Japanese like this, it's a Chinese loanword, but when it's used in Japanese like this, if you just saw fu, okay, that would instantly be twigged as a noun, okay? However, what we do in Japanese, or what they did classically in Japanese, what we do now, is you can take fu and you can stick the general to-do verb in Japanese, su, and you can stick it on the end of a Chinese loanword and turn it from a noun into a verb. So fu is a seal. Fu su is how you could say it, but how they did it in classical Japanese is they then voiced that su, so it would be fu zu, okay? Fu zu means to seal away, to seal off. So fu is a seal, fu zu is to seal, okay? But the thing about the general do verb, to-do verb, su, okay? In modern Japanese is suru, but in classical Japanese it was su. The general to-do verb does not behave like other verbs. It does not conjugate like other verbs, okay? And what we're doing here is we are conjugating it, okay? So first we are taking fu zu and we're turning it into fu ze. And the reason why we're turning it into fu ze is because we need to put that in the, I believe it is the mizenke, it is the not yet complete form, the not yet form, okay? The mizenke, not yet form, which is the form that you use with negation, you use with causative, so like let, have, or make, or in this case, you use it with passive voice, and that's what we're doing here. We're doing fuzu to fuze, so we can put this dade, which originally the ending form of dade, the passive version would be fuze dadu, okay? Fuze dadu, okay? And again, I apologize for the sound of the Shinkansen coming in. Fuze dadu. However, we are then taking that ending, the passive ending, okay? Which basically the passive means be sealed by something. So sealed by a spirit, or rather my power. Okay, power is the thing that is being sealed, and the thing that is being sealed by, the thing that is doing the sealing technically, is the mononoke. All right, fuze rare. Now, but we're not done with conjugating this verb. Fuze raru is how it would be the ending form, okay? But we have fuze rare, which is the connective form, okay? It is the renyoke is what it's called technically, and we are sticking a she on this. Now, she, the ending form of she, the normal form of she, is actually ki. And basically, that is a past recollective, okay? It denotes something in the past, but not necessarily in the same way that like the nu or tsu, which is also another way that you can turn things in classical Japanese into a past tense. But those denote like completion, or sometimes like completed and in a certain state of a being. Whereas ki, in this instance, ki, the is the normal way that you conjugate it, just denotes that something happened in the past and I'm kind of recollecting it. However, we're going from fuze rare ki to fuze rare shi, which is the attributive form, which is that same form that the magamaga shiki, okay? It is attributing a following noun, okay? So fuze rare shi, okay? So fuze rare shi is sealed by the power sealed by the power sealed by the demons. And then there's a noun. So there's some noun, okay, that follows all of this. However, what follows this shi is not a noun, but a particle, yori, which means from, Okay, yori just means from, like, I'm trying to think, like, asoko yori kitari, I came from there. Soko yori kitari. Ware yori iwam. Okay, I say from me. Ware yori sono koto zo yuku. Those words go from me, sprout from me. Okay, so fuzerarishi yori. Now, the thing that's going on here is there's actually a implied verb. There's an implied verb going on here, which could be either toki or koto, which means the toki means a time period, a time of, which you can more easily, sensibly translate to like when. Or koto just means the thing of, which is how you can take certain verbs and put them into nouns, because, sometimes we want to do that. So basically, magamagashi hokori nite. So within the what do you call that? In the sinister shrine, mononoke ni chikara o fuzerarishi yori. Since the time that the demons sealed away my power, okay, from the time that the demons sealed my power in the evil shrine. Moving on. Okay, harukeki toki ga. Okay, so harukeki comes from the root adjective harukeshi. Okay, however, we turn it into, and harukesh means distant, really far away, far away, way off in the distance. Okay, however, we go from the harukeshi, turn it into the attributive form harukeki to modify the following toki, which again means time. Now, time. You can see the harukeki toki, the very distant time, which again, that makes kind of sense. Harukeki toki ga, okay? Harukeki toki ga. Ga is the, what is that called? What is that thing called? The sentence, the subject marker. So it's the subject of the sentence. Also, it can be possessive, but anyways, in this instance, it's just going to be the subject of a sentence. So the subject of the sentence is the distant time, the faraway time. And that denotes that the faraway time is doing the thing. And what is the thing that it's doing? Sugi, yuku, mo. Okay. Sugi comes from the root verb sugu, which means modern Japanese sugiru, which means to pass by, to go beyond, to exceed, to go past, right? However, we go from sugu to sugi because, again, that's the soft connective form, which means that we can add other words onto it to make it one bigger word. And then yuku is just yuku just means to go. And now, yuku is an interesting thing because both yuku is the ending form, which is the normal form, right? Or it can also be the connective form, not the connective form, the attributive form, which technically that's what's going on here. Is there supposed to be another noun here, but there isn't. It's implied. So instead, we just have mo. So the act of going past, so the thing of, the going past of the distant time, or the distant time going long past. The long distance time going far past me, going far away from me, right? So in the distant past, or I guess for a long time, I guess is basically what he's saying. For a very long time. Ware, I. Now again, you could technically put a particle here, but because this is classical Japanese, we're just not going to, because who cares? Omoto. Now again, I'm not going to explain omoto here. I've explained it many times in previous videos, so please go watch those if you want to know more about it. But omoto and how it works. But omoto is basically just an honorific you pronoun. Okay, it is an honorific second person pronoun. It is honorific you. Now they didn't really use omoto like this in classical Japanese, but for the purposes of this video game, and because we don't want to get like too crazy, like too specific with the classical Japanese, or else regular Japanese people aren't going to understand this, we'll just let it slide. Okay, so I, you, o, and there's that object particle again, denoting that the honorific you is going to be receiving the action, the I is going to be doing the action, so I do something to honorifically you. Shinoba zaru koto wa. Okay? Nash. So this comes from the root verb shinobu, which means to think about, to recollect, to think fondly on, okay? And we go from shinobu, which is the ending form, to shinoba, which is the not yet done form, which, like I said, you can use for negation, and that's what we're doing here. You go from shinobu to shinoba, and then you stick a zu on the end of it. Shinoba-zu means do not recollect. So shinobu, to recollect. Ware shinobu means I recollect. Ware shinoba-zu means I do not recollect, okay? However, we're not done here because we're combining two things. This is a little shortcut. This is a little combination. Shinoba-zu ari, okay, is basically what this zaru comes from, okay? Shinobazu ari. Now, ari just means to exist in a state, to exist as, okay? So, shinobazu ari is basically saying, like, I do not recollect and am in this state of not recollecting, okay? However, what we're doing here is we are going from shinobazu ari to shinobazari, okay? Obviously, you can see that it's kind of how we say it is. Instead of saying it is in English, we just say it's, or what are you doing as opposed to what are you doing. Like, obviously, this is just something that languages do, is they just kind of blend words together. So shinobazari, okay, means I do, still just basically means the same thing. It's a longer way of saying I do not recollect. However, the reason why we do this is because zu, when you end a sentence with the word zu, you can't really do a whole lot with it. You can't actually conjugate zu, the negation thing, right? It's hard to conjugate that in different ways. So instead what we do is we stick it with this ari, which you can conjugate, right? So shinobaza-ri goes to shinobaza-ru, which is the attributive form. So we're attributing a noun, which is koto, which means thing. So the thing of not remembering, right? The thing of I not remembering you, was, the particle is a topic marker, subject marker. It just means that this is kind of the focus of the following verb, which is technically not a verb. It's technically an adjective, but adjectives and verbs in Japanese are like really, really closely related. Anyway, so ware omoto shinobazaru koto wa. So the thing of me not remembering you, nashi, means does not exist. It is the opposite of ari. Ari means exists. Nash means does not exist. So the thing of me not remembering you does not exist. Means there was never a moment in the distant time that continuously passed me by that I did not recollect you, I did not think about you, right? So he's trapped in this whatever shrine, right? His power was trapped in this shrine and he was stuck there, and not a day went by that he didn't think of his goddess, or the wellspring from which he sprung. Anyway, continuing. Okay. Omoto no tsuriki ni te. So, omoto just means honorific you. And it's honorific you. It's not like regular you. It's like honorific, like I'm speaking to somebody superior. Okay. And then no, again, means of, I think is the easiest way to translate it. But of, it's possessive. It means yours. Okay. So, omoto no means your. And then we have tsuriki. Okay. Tsuriki is a Chinese loanword. Tsu means to pass by, to go through. But I believe when you expand out the concept, right, to go through something, like you can imagine somebody who's been through a lot, who's been through an ordeal, who's been through the path, who has taken the path, okay, they become expert. Tsu, what I looked up in my dictionary a while ago, was that tsu can kind of be like being super familiar with, being adept at, or being kind of like a teacher of, okay. So tsu just means like going through or being really skilled at, being really knowledgeable of. And then riki is the same kanji that we saw before, which is chikara, okay? Chikara means power, but when you have the quasi-Chinese pronunciation, the Japanese version of the Chinese pronunciation, right? It becomes riki or ryoku. In this case, riki. So tsuriki just means like special power, superpower, like divine power. So omoto no tsuriki, your divine power, okay? And there's that nite, by means of, okay? Waga, okay? Waga comes from ware again, which means I. However, the ga can be possessive. So in here we use a possessive no, but here we use a possessive ga. They both, in this instance, they both function as basically the same thing. In other instances, they can function also, they can each function as like a subject marker of a sentence. Although in both of these instances, it's actually more of it is a possessive thing. So, however, when you put ga with ware, you drop off the de and put ga. And this happens with other words. So you have ware, waga. Nare, which means you, is a non-honorific version of you. Nare, naga, okay? Kare, which means third person, kare. And then if you want to say his or hers, or the third that belongs to it, kaga, okay? Or tare means who, and taga, whose, okay? So waga, my, jubaku, okay? Ju, this ju here is a kanji that means, jubaku is a Chinese loan word. Ju just means like a spell or magic, okay? And then baku means like restraints, okay? So a jubaku is like a magic seal, is like a magic restraint, right? Magical chains. It's a spell that binds you, a spell of binding. Waga jubaku harawaretaru ima, okay? Now, harawaretaru comes from the root verb harao, okay? Harao means to dispel, to get rid of, to shake off, right? However, we are turning it into a passive, so instead of going from harau, we go to harawa, which is the not yet done form, right? The incomplete form, the mizenke, which we've seen twice before. And we go from harau to harawaru, okay? Is regular how you would do that. However, we are further conjugating this passive form, harawadu to haraware. So we can stick, and this haraware is the soft connective form, the denyoke. So we can stick this taru, okay? Now, taru, the root form of that, this is an auxiliary verb, so it means that it doesn't really have a lot of meaning outside of itself, but you stick it on to other verbs to expand on them, right? So haraware taru comes from the root auxiliary verb tari, which means to do something and be in a continual state, or to do something repeatedly, or it can kind of just be, it's one of the ways that you can kind of do past tense, okay? Haraware taru. So, I, having been freed, I am freed from my secret spells, my spells of binding, free from my spell of binding. However, we go from haraware tari, which is the ending form, to haraware taru, because we are modifying the noun ima, which means now. So, the now that I am freed from my bonds, right? The now that I am free from my bonds. So, now that I am freed from my bonds by your majesty, by your sacred power, your superpower, your special power. Okay, kono moegami. Kono just means this, literally, kono, this, but it's kind of how they would say we would say in like regular English. We would say in English, I, Moegami, okay, this is his name. I, Moegami, kono moegami, this moegami, I, Moegami, okay? Hageshiku, the root adjective, hageshi, okay? Hagesh just means like violent or super like crazy and harsh, okay? Harsh, violent, you can think of like wild, like right? However, we go from hagesh and we go to hageshiku. Now, hageshiku, when you put the ku on the end of an adjective like this, takes it from an adjective and turns it into an adverb. So I am doing something is happening, a thing is going to be happening, a verb is following, an action is going to be following. But whatever that action is, it is doing so severely, intensely, like harshly, okay? Hageshiku, moe tatsuke. So moe, like I mentioned with his name, moe comes from the root verb moyu, which means to burn. However, we go from moyu to moe, which is the soft connective form, and then we put the verb tats, which means to stand, right? And tatsu is in the attributive form because we are going to be modifying this following verb, but real quick. So moe tatsu means, so hageshiku moe tatsu means to like, moyu just means to burn. Moe tatsu means to burn and stand, like it's this idea of standing, of rising, I guess is the other thing. Burning and rising, this rising, burning sensation, but this severe, harsh, rising, burning. So that burning. So basically what he's saying is, now that he is freed, he is going to use the power of his violent flames to burn everything, or burn all of the enemies, I guess. And then we have dekka, okay? Because this hageshiku moe tatsu is modifying, all of this is modifying this noun, which is dekka, which is a Chinese loanword. Retsu is another way you can write hageshi, which is actually very, very, it's violent, it's severe, it's crazy, it's wild. However, that is retsu, and then we have this Chinese pronunciation, the Chinese-Japanese pronunciation of this kanji, which means fire. So dekka means like violent flames, like severe flames, crazy flames, right? Hageshiku moe tatsu dekka to narite. And then to just means as, and nari is the classical Japanese word of be. To is a particle, nari is a verb. So to narite, so dekka to narite, I will become as the violent fire that burns fiercely, the fiercely burning crazy fire. However, we go from nari to narite. Again, you can stick that te on there because it's a connective thing. It means we're not done with the sentence, but it's a hard connective, right? So it's separating this off. It's like this is not combining into one big word. The next part isn't combining into one big word. It's just saying, boom, we're continuing. And, okay? Actually, I believe if you watch Avatar, I believe dekka is the Japanese way that when they're doing the enter the water fire, earth. When you look in the background, you can see little kanji, and I believe that when they do the fire, they write it with rekka, like this. I'll have to double check. Anyway, rekko tonarite, I become the fire, right? Okay, and then yo o, so the yo means world, o is the object particle, means it is having the thing done to it, and the thing that is being done is o, okay? O means to cover, to hide, right? Yo o. However, this is it's both technically the ending form, but in this instance it's actually the attributive form because it is describing the anun, okay? The following anun. Anun is a noun, is a Chinese load word. It is used or is made of the two kanji, an meaning dark and un meaning clouds. So dark clouds, black clouds. Oh, now these dark clouds that cover the world is going to be receiving the action, which is yaki harawam, okay? So yaki comes from the root verb yaku, which means to burn away, right? Or yaku means to burn. Like when you cook something in Japanese, you yaki. That's where you get teriyaki, right? Teri, I don't remember exactly what teri means, but yaki just means burning of, it's a kind of cooking, okay? We have yaki harawam, which again, we saw the verb harao in the previous little bit, okay? Harao means to expunge, expel, to get rid of, okay? So yaki harao means to like burn away. However, we go from yaki harao to yaki harawa because that is the incomplete form, and then we stick this on the end, okay? And originally came from mu, and mu just denoted two things. It could denote either intention, which is the case here. It is denoting intention, like I will do this thing, or it denoted uncertainty, like that might happen. And again, I explained the connection between those two ideas in previous videos, so please go check those out if you want to know more. And then I believe, so this little bit here, yo o au o yaki harawam. I will burn away the dark clouds that cover the world, okay? And I think that's it. Okay, so let's go over, just to double check, just go over one final time. So, O our compassionate mother, great goddess Amaterasu. Okay? So, since the time that my power was sealed away by the demons in the calamitous shrine, even the distant time that passed, there was not a moment, even during the distant time that passed, there was not a moment, there was not a single time where I did not think of you. By your divine power, now, having cast off my chains, by your divine power, now having been rid of my bonds with your divine power, I, Moegami, shall become the fire, the raging fires, shall become the raging fires, shall become raging fires and burn away the dark clouds that cover all of the world. Okay? And then turns into moe, which means again to burn. Okay? And then you get the magic power, yay! Okay, so that is it. I'm very glad that I could actually get back to doing some of these. I'm hoping to get through them very soon, and so that way I can move on to some other things, because as much as I like Okami, I think there's some other things that you might end up finding a little more interesting, like actual instances of poetry quotations and whatnot. There's some other things that I have, some ideas that I have for making other videos for the channel and whatnot, but I would like to get through these first because I started this and I would like to at least finish it. So, if you have any questions for me, please feel free to let me know in the comments. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like it. Please subscribe to the channel, because while I am working on these things, and I do plan on working on things from other games and potentially even anime in the future, I do also put out, the main thing that I do on this channel is I translate stories from the Konjaku Monogatari Shu, which is a collection of old stories written in classical Japanese, written in this language that I am painstakingly trying to explain to you guys. Not that I fully understand it myself, because like you tried reading The Tale of Genji, it's a whopper. Anyway, I do primarily translate stories from that classical Japanese collection of stories into English and try to retell them here. So if you're interested in that, please go check those out as well. And please check out the other videos that I have, not just on Okami, but I have some from Genshin. I have some from, what is that game? That really big game, important game, Ghost of Tsushima. right? And yeah, thank you so much if you've been watching all the way up to the end here. I do thank you sincerely. Ito ureshu koso hanberi kere. And hopefully we will see you next week or in the future for Tales or for more classical Japanese analyses. Thank you very much, guys. Goodbye.